And I kind of want to tie all that into, the big first talking point before we jump around the league, Shane. We're seeing a lot of angst around the SEC and the high pressure, a lot of expectations. So we're no strangers to it, but three guys, of course, I wanted to, zero in here. Jimbo Fisher at A&M, Dan Mullen at Florida, Coach O at LSU. All three of those guys, fan bases not exactly thrilled with those three at the moment after some early season losses. And, my guy Dave Bartu, who runs the CFB Matrix, he's given each of those guys a grade of -2 on the season. That's really that's really bad. At least this early in the season. There's still time to recoup from that. But if you aren't familiar with Bartu's metric, it's pretty simple. TLC, talent, how much talent you got on your roster, of course, how much talent the opponent has, the location of the game, home or away, and that's how you get your coach effect. So again, Dan Mullen, Ed Orgeron, Jimbo Fisher, all -2 coach effect early in the season, and that is the worst in the SEC. But, let's play these clips real quick, Shay, because basically all three of these guys are kind of like battling narratives in the media right now.
Right.
And then I'll get to my point here.
All right, guys, so we had a great meeting this morning, our staff, Tell the Truth Monday. I want to say this first. Ultimately, I'm responsible for the performance of this team. I've always been responsible, and I always will be. First and foremost, I want to get that point across today.
Coach, why do you think, and this is the second time you said it, as respectfully as I can, why do you think it's necessary for you to say that you're responsible? What point
I just think it's clear that when things don't go wrong, obviously I get asked questions and maybe they may sound like I'm trying to point the finger or something like that. And as you know me, Ed, and everybody knows me on there, that's not me. I'm going to take full responsibility for everything that happens in this program, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Okay. Back first season here after the Missouri game, you referenced wanting to win and compete with everything, and including thumb wrestling with a lot of passion. Is that same sense of urgency and motivation missing from the program right now?
Not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. I promise you that.
Yeah, Dan, I'm going to kind of follow up along those lines. Whether it's right or wrong, a lot of the fans feel like maybe you guys are kind of stalled out at that New Year's 6 range. What is it going to take for you guys as a program to push through and get back to that SEC title game and in a situation where you can win it?
We were there last year, so.
But do you understand the concerns about the trajectory, given that you were there last year and now you're 5 games in, looking at a 3-2 record?
No, I mean, each year is independent of itself. A lot of different factors go into things from one year to the next. There's a lot of football still to be played this year, so we'll see how this year plays out.
Jimbo, how do you coach against allowing the negativity, the losing to penetrate the locker room?
You block it out. Turn it off. Turn the social media off. Turn y'all off. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, you got to lock into that room and only in that room and the people, family, and understand that at the end of the day, listen, y'all are doing your job. Everybody has their opinions. Everybody's doing their job. Quit. When you write something good, don't listen. When you write something bad, don't listen. Move on. Eliminate the clutter. And that's you have to learn to do that. And in our society at this age and this young group, it's a very hard thing to do because they live, eat, and survive on it. They've got to learn to turn it off and understand that's part of growing up, that you're going to have to grow up and people are going to doubt you. They're going to love you. They're going to all based off what you do on a Saturday. And that's the world we're in. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what it's what fans should do and it's what writers should do. But you have to eliminate and understand who's really with you and what has to happen and who's going to, how you got to listen. And when you have down times or bad moments, you got to circle the wagons and trust the people right there with you and that are in the trenches with you and play ball. At the end of the day, what you got to do. It takes maturity. And it's hard for guys, hard for young men.
All right, Shane. So, I really wanted to play these clips. And, my main point here, and I really, I thought about doing this on the last show, but I really wanted to discuss it with you. You can look around the landscape of college football, and I hate to even bring this up, but, Tennessee is a good example. Nebraska, Miami, Southern Cal. I mean, these are traditional powers in the sport that after a coaching changes, and all those, aside from Southern Cal, Pete Carroll left for the NFL, but obviously they still had to make a coaching change. Coaching changes have ruined those programs. And particularly when you think about, switching coaches after a couple of years. And, like I said, it's understandable to be upset. Particularly, I could see Coach O 2 years in a row not having a great team here. But, the grass ain't always greener, brother. And we can't sit here and tout the SEC as this juggernaut of a conference, which it is, and then be stunned when one year Dan Mullen wins the East, and then the next year, loses to Florida and loses to maybe the best Kentucky team of all time. And, same thing with Jimbo. I mean, should they have lost to Mississippi State? No. Should they have lost to Arkansas? I think you could argue no. But, again, I think it speaks to the depth of the SEC West. And, hell, and I'm not calling you out on this because it's everybody and their mother, but even you on the last show said, hey, are we fight? Is Coach O even going to make it with this gauntlet they got coming up? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Shane? Because I'm a big guy that thinks, we got to let the season play out. And yes, we're looking at LSU's upcoming schedule here, and we're saying, oh, God, I don't know if Coach O can survive it. But why are we judging it before he's even been played? What if he beats the vast majority of the upcoming opponents? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, golly, Mike, you want to talk about hot water? All three of these guys are in it. I always think of that old meme where it had the three lobsters are smoking a cigar. It looks like it's a hot tub, and then it backs out, and you realize it's over a campfire. It's just like these guys don't realize it, but they're in some they're in an uncharted territory, man. I think. I can't say they're exactly even either. Coach O was kind of a rumored hot seat coming into this season, and all he's done is put icing on that cake. It's just been a sloppy start of the season. We're going to hear some more comments from him later, but there's a lot of excuses coming out of Louisiana, and a lot of fingers being pointed. So, I think there is going to be yet another hire down there in LSU at the end of this season. Now, Jimbo, I don't think they're the same category. I mean, obviously, they just gave him an extension. They're paying him a shit ton of money. They do got confidence in their coach, but it's one of the most I would say probably out of all of them, the most frustrated fan base just because the expectations were so high coming into this season. And then you got Dan. One thing that hurts Dan is just his goofy personality. It's one thing to lose, but it's another to lose and come out and act like you don't care, because you may care. Dan may care deep down inside where clearly he cares. He wants to win, but just his vibe, his persona, when you see Dan, it's frustrating because you want answers and you want this thing fixed. And I don't have the full confidence behind him right now when he comes out and make comments like this. So, it's two programs. All three of these programs are nowhere where they had higher expectations coming to this season, and now how do they rebound? And you can't just fire coaches like you said at the start of this, man. If you make one bad hire, it will set you back a decade. Look, you joked about Tennessee. Look, I'm not saying Lane was a bad hire, but when they brought Derek Dooley in, that literally set this program back 10 years. USC, same thing. You could argue that Lane Kiffin being out there set them back. There's just one bad hire. You can't just bounce back like you used to. And these storied programs, Texas A&M, LSU, Florida, these kids that are coming to these universities these days do not care about tradition like they used to. They're not going to these programs because their great-granddads loved it. They're going there because they want to get to the NFL. And if your games are getting pushed to noon or they're getting pushed to different channels, they don't want to play there. It's all about the money. And now I think more than ever with the name, image, likeness, that there is going to be a shift in college football, and it's going to be about who can pay and who can get me on TV the most. And if you keep losing games, you're going to fall. You're going to start losing recruits that way.
Mm-hmm. And maybe the perfect example, like you said, one wrong coach or move sets you back. Of course, I think of Brent Zerneman. What did he tell us, Shane? If they didn't land Jimbo, they would have got Chad Morris. I mean, where would A&M?
Oh yeah.
That's just that just goes to show you that you just don't know until you hire the guy. I mean, that seems laughable at this point, but Chad Morris was a hot commodity. I mean,
look at Saban. Saban wasn't the first choice to Alabama.
Right. They tried to hire Rich Rodriguez,
Yeah, and how well's the sheriff doing right now, or whatever his damn nickname is?
So I don't know. I just think that's something to think about. And of course, I think, based on these three situations, Jimbo certainly, maybe, some people rolled their eyes when they gave him that extension, but, I think this is potentially a situation where, A&M can avoid all the hot seat talk and if nothing else, I think we've come to realize that at a lot of these schools, patience pays off. And you just can't be flipping coaches left and right because you're not happy with what just happened. I mean, hell, Texas A&M just had their highest finish since like 1930 last season, and yet people are upset. Dan Mullen, I saw someone the other day say, "Well, hell, Dan Mullen got bailed out by Kyle Pitts last year. Kyle Pitts was a 3-star nobody wanted. He turned him into the highest drafted tight end of all time. Let's not forget Trask. I mean, he had literally one scholarship offer. He's now a quarterback for Tampa Bay Bucks. Felipe Franks was a complete bust until Dan Mullen got his hands on him. And I think the thing with Dan, and you kind of hit on it, he's kind of an asshole. But it's just that's who he is. And he doesn't take losses well. He's never going to handle it right. And sometimes I think he doesn't handle winning with a class way. And I think of the Darth Vader costume. But that's just who he is. And he really is, at the end of the day, a really good football coach. And I would agree that, he got out-coached last week on the road at Kentucky, but that's kind of the beauty of college football, man. You just don't know what you're going to get week in, week out. And, let's not forget they got this quarterback, Anthony Richardson, who certainly looks like he's still hobbled, but let's say next season he's a legit Heisman finalist, maybe even the winner. I mean, how good is Florida going to be if they have that dynamic of a quarterback? And there's no guarantee that if they run Dan Mullen out, the next coach is going to know how to utilize his talent. And there's no guarantee with the transfer portal that Anthony Richardson is going to stick around. So, you got to take all these things into perspective before you start running a coach off. I really do think.
Yeah, it's that time of the year, Mike. Everybody's, when you're coming into the season and everybody's undefeated, you never feel, that's the best you feel about your program. Then when you drop one, you start questioning things, and then you drop the second, you start blaming people. And I feel like that's where these schools are at. Now, let me ask you, I think this is going to be an easy answer. Out of these three, which one's getting fired first?
We just had a whole segment on keeping these coaches there. Now you're like, who are we firing?
I know. I want to be realistic here. I just, if you had to put money on it, which one's getting the boot?
I mean, I think you'd have to say Coach O, as much as we love him, and I think a lot of it has to do with the, the off the field issues. But even that, I struggle with, because I look at this team and I see a ton of potential. Obviously, they're not reaching it all, but particularly with the freshmen and sophomores on this roster. And that's not to say the next coach couldn't, maximize that talent even more. But I think you run the risk, if you're LSU, of not getting the most out of those freshmen and sophomore if you get rid of Coach O, because who knows who's going to stick around with the transfer portal. So I see a potential SEC contender on this roster in a year or two, and there's no guarantees that that's going to happen. But I will say this of LSU, and they've won 3 national championships in recent times with Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron, and I think that gives that program a ton of confidence that as long as it's not like you could just hire anybody, but as long as you got a qualified coach down there, you should be an SEC and national championship contender. So, and maybe that speaks to that the program really is greater than any individual coach down there.
So let me ask you one last question, Mike, and I'm going to put you on the hot seat here. All three are gone at the end of the season. I don't think it happens. Mm-hmm. I truly think we're overreacting a little bit here, but let's just pretend that all three open up and you go out and you're looking for a coach. How would you rank these jobs? Like you just kind of, I think you tipped your hat a little bit there with LSU, but in order, if you were a new coach, everybody wants you. Which one is, I guess, if you're looking at their resumes, that you would want to hire first?
You're saying of these three coaches or these three programs?
No, the three programs. Yeah. Like, you're just I don't want to put any names out there or anything like that because there's plenty of them floating around. But let's just say you're an NFL guy. You're you're getting heavily recruited to the college league. There's three openings in the SEC. There's LSU. There's Florida. There's Texas A&M. In your order, which one is the most attractive?
I think I'd go with Florida, and the main reason why, because this is a tough decision. They're all elite level. They're all in fertile recruiting grounds. But the one thing that Florida's got that LSU and A&M don't, and maybe this will be changing with with the divisions potentially going away, there ain't no Nick Saban in the East. And I really do think, until he's out of there or until Alabama takes a step back, hell, Coach O's won a national championship 2 years ago. People are fired up.
Yeah.
If, let's say, Jimbo and the Aggies get destroyed on Saturday against Alabama, they're going to be upset fans once again. So I realize Georgia's in the East, but I think Florida's proven historically they can compete with them. And, hell, they just beat them last year. So, yeah, I think Florida right now, in my opinion, I would go with that. I think the path to Atlanta is a lot easier in the East than it is in the West right now.
One last question, Mike, before we get on. Now, I do want to ask you about all this is going on in my head here. I feel like Dan isn't at his dream job. I don't know if that's your take on it, but I just feel like this, with the rumors of the NFL and everything like that, do you see Dan in Gainesville in 4 years? I'm not thinking I don't think he ever gets fired, but I do think there could come a point he actually leaves. So I'm just curious, your thought is this a forever home? Because you'd love to have everybody wants a Nick Saban. Everybody wants a coach to come in there, coach there for 10, 15 years, win a few national championships, always be competitive in your conference. That's what we all want. It is so tough to be because you look around the landscape of the SEC, how many coaches we just constantly revolt. We're looking for that perfect coach. And I do think Dan is elite. I do think that he's a good fit down there in Gainesville. However, I just get that vibe, too, that he doesn't want to be there sometimes, especially in the offseason. And now, with a little heat on him, with 2 losses, we're just now starting October. It makes you wonder, is he going to be one of the first guys that takes the opportunity to go somewhere else?
Yeah, that's historically who he's always been, trying to get his name involved in other programs. Now, he was at Mississippi State, and, historically that is an incredibly difficult place to win. You're behind the 8 ball because you're in Nick Saban's division, because you're in LSU's division. Both Mississippi programs, that was a heated rivalry at the time. Then you throw in A&M in there, and Arkansas was, they've had their ups and downs, but basically the entire time Dan Mullen was there, Arkansas was competitive. So maybe that had a little bit to do with it, but it's translated to, like you said, the Florida Gators. Now that he's having success, he's eyeing the NFL, and he's a Northeastern guy. So what happens if, the Penn State job opens or the Michigan job opens or something like that? Would he be intrigued by those? He tried to get hired on at Michigan one time when he was Mississippi State's coach. Would he again? I think he would jump at an NFL job as well. So, yeah, I kind of get that feeling, and it's I don't think it's a reflection, honestly, of the Florida program. I think it's a reflection on him and his he's just like he's an interesting guy. You know what I mean? And it just doesn't seem like recruiting is his main thing. He seems like he's a X and O's genius. And that suits NFL better. And maybe that suits Big Ten better. I don't know, but hell, I certainly wouldn't want to run him off if I'm the Gators, because I know things are bad this week and it's doom and gloom and all that, but I really think he's one of the top 10, if not top 5 head coaches in college football right now.
All right. Interview's over, Mike.